of the conversation and to choose your words with care. It prevents misunderstandings and helps you avoid unnecessary conflict. The habit of not replying immediately isn't just about holding back your words. It's about cultivating an awareness of the dynamics of a conversation. When you don't rush to speak, you give others the space to express themselves fully. Sometimes people don't need an immediate answer. They need to be heard. By allowing a moment of silence to linger, you invite deeper reflection, both in yourself and in the person you're engaging with. This pause creates a space where more meaningful communication can take place, as it allows everyone involved to process and contribute thoughtfully. In difficult or emotionally charged conversations, the value of silence cannot be overstated. When emotions run high, it's easy for things to spiral out of control. Our minds race, and we feel the impulse to defend ourselves or react to what has been said. But responding immediately often exacerbates the situation. By taking a pause, you give yourself the chance to cool down, to put your emotions in check, and to approach the conversation with a clear mind. This moment of silence is not weakness. It's strength. It's an act of self-control, of maturity, and of emotional intelligence. Silence also gives the other person the opportunity to reflect. How often have we been caught in a conversation where we were rushing to get our point across, only to realize that we had missed an important detail or failed to consider the other person's perspective? When we don't reply right away, we allow the conversation to breathe, creating a space for greater understanding to emerge. Sometimes, a pause gives the other person the time they need to reconsider their own words, to realize something they hadn't initially thought through, or to provide you with a deeper explanation that enriches the conversation. This idea of the powerful pause extends beyond direct conversation. In meetings, whether at work or in personal settings, the same principle applies. When a question or comment is directed at you, rather than immediately blurting out a response, take a moment to collect your thoughts. This simple act communicates a sense of confidence and control. It shows that you are not rushed and that you're not speaking just for the sake of filling the space. Instead, you are pausing to consider how best to contribute to the discussion, ensuring your input is meaningful and relevant. Silence can also serve as a powerful negotiation tool. If you're in a situation where you need to make a decision or negotiate terms, not replying immediately can shift the dynamic in your favor. When you take a moment to pause, you show that you are weighing the options, not just agreeing to whatever is presented. This can encourage the other party to reconsider their position, offer more favorable terms, or provide additional information that helps you make a more informed decision. In the world of negotiation, silence is often the strongest statement you can make. Of course, there's a balance to be struck. Silence for the sake of silence can lead to disengagement, making it harder to foster connections or to maintain the flow of a conversation. It's important to recognize when a pause has served its purpose and when it's time to speak up. A well-timed response after a thoughtful pause has much more weight and impact than a hasty one. The key is to remain conscious of the rhythm of the conversation, to sense when your contribution is needed, and to have the discipline to wait for the right moment to speak. This principle also holds true in written communication. In today's digital age, where we're often expected to reply to emails, texts, and messages instantly, the pressure to respond quickly is ever present. But just like in face-to-face communication, taking a moment to pause before replying can lead to better outcomes. Whether it's a tricky email at work or a message from a friend, giving yourself the space to think before responding allows you to compose a more thoughtful, measured reply. It shows that you value the conversation and that you're not just reacting in haste. The same principle applies to social media. How many times have you seen a comment or post that if you'd responded immediately would have been reactive or overly emotional? By waiting and reflecting before hitting send, you avoid the regret of speaking in the heat of the moment. Taking time to pause also gives us the opportunity to manage our emotions. It's easy to get caught up in the intensity of a moment, but our ability to control our reactions speaks volumes about our maturity. Pausing helps us step back from a situation and approach it with a calm, composed demeanor. It's about recognizing that we don't have to respond right away to every stimulus. In fact, sometimes saying nothing is the most powerful form of communication. By choosing to pause, we regain control over our responses and create the space for a more measured, intentional contribution. So the next time you find yourself in a conversation or situation where you feel the urge to respond immediately, remember the power of the pause. It's a sign of strength, self-control, and wisdom. It allows you to process, reflect, and respond in a way that is intentional and impactful. Whether in a personal conversation, a professional meeting, or a written exchange, taking the time to pause before replying will always work in your favor. It's not about silence for the sake of silence, but about ensuring that when you do speak, your words have substance and power behind them. Chapter 12. Master the art of saying no with confidence. There's a certain power in the word no. For many, it's a word that doesn't come easily. We've all been there, feeling the weight of saying no to someone, worrying about disappointing them, or fearing that our refusal will damage the relationship. We might find ourselves saying yes to things we don't want to do, or that we don't have time for, just to avoid the discomfort of saying no. But the truth is, learning to say no is one of the most important skills you can develop, not only for your own well-being, but for the respect you deserve from others. Saying no isn't about being rude or rejecting others. It's about setting boundaries, respecting your own needs, and understanding your priorities. It's a form of self-care, discipline, and emotional intelligence. When you say no, you're creating space for what truly matters in your life. You're saying yes to yourself, to your goals, to your time, and to your energy. It allows you to focus on what's important rather than constantly giving in to the demands and expectations of others. For many people, the fear of saying no stems from a place of insecurity. We worry that others will think we're selfish, rude, or unhelpful. The truth is, though, saying no doesn't make you a bad person. In fact, it can make you a stronger, more respected individual. People who can set clear boundaries are often seen as more confident, more reliable, and more focused. It's not a rejection of the other person or their needs, but rather an affirmation of your own needs and limits. Saying no also creates space for more authentic, meaningful relationships. When you're constantly saying yes to things you don't want to do, you're spreading yourself thin and likely not giving your best to any one thing. By saying no, you're protecting your energy and resources, ensuring that when you do engage with others, you're doing so with full presence and genuine interest. This leads to stronger, more respectful connections because you're not overcommitting or being stretched too thin. It's easy to slip into the habit of saying yes without really considering if it's the right thing for you. The pressure to please others or to avoid conflict can lead us to agree to things we don't truly want or need to do. But every time we say yes when we should say no, we're saying no to ourselves. We're denying ourselves the opportunity to focus on what matters, to rest, or to engage in activities that truly align with our values. Learning to say no is a way of protecting our time and energy, ensuring that we're not giving away pieces of ourselves to things that don't serve us. The key to saying no with confidence is understanding that it's a choice, not a burden. It's about recognizing that you have control over how you spend your time and what you agree to. When you say no, you're making an intentional decision to honor your priorities and your well-being. It's not about being confrontational or dismissive. It's about asserting your boundaries in a healthy, respectful way. You can say no without explanation or guilt, and that's something that takes practice. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. A simple way to approach saying no is to recognize that it doesn't require a lengthy explanation. Often, when we're afraid to say no, we feel the need to justify our decision, to offer excuses or elaborate on why we can't comply. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone a lengthy explanation for your decisions. A simple "I can't" or "I'm unable to" is enough. You don't need to apologize for putting your needs first. Remember, it's not about being selfish. It's about being clear and honest with your time and energy. It's also helpful to recognize that saying no doesn't mean you're rejecting the person. You can say no to a request without rejecting the person who made it. You can remain supportive and respectful while still asserting your boundaries. If someone asks you to take on a responsibility or attend an event that you don't have the capacity for, a polite, firm no is enough. You can still express appreciation for the invitation or request, but you don't have to agree to everything that's asked of you. The fear of missing out can be another barrier to saying no. We worry that by turning down an invitation or opportunity, we might miss something important or exciting. But the truth is, Saying no to one thing often opens up the space for something much more aligned with your true goals and values. When you say no, you make room for things that are truly meaningful. You allow yourself the freedom to focus on what's important to you, without the distractions or obligations that can pull you away from your priorities. There's also a tendency to feel that saying no is a sign of weakness, but it's the opposite. It takes strength and courage to establish boundaries and stand firm in your decisions. Saying no is not a sign that you lack compassion or care for others. It's a sign that you care enough about yourself to protect your time and energy. People will respect you more when you can confidently say no. It shows that you have self-respect and that you're not willing to overextend yourself just to please others. As you practice saying no, you may notice that others begin to respect your boundaries more as well. Setting clear limits sends the message that you value yourself, and that makes others more likely to value you too. Over time, you'll find that people start to understand and even expect that you won't always say yes. And that's okay. It's a healthy part of establishing respect in your relationships. You're not responsible for other people's reactions to your boundaries. What matters is that you're respecting yourself and taking care of your own needs. If you struggle with the guilt of saying no, it might help to reframe your perspective. Instead of viewing a no as something negative or confrontational, try to see it as an act of self-care. When you say no to something that isn't right for you, you're giving yourself the gift of space, clarity, and peace. You're creating the room to focus on what truly matters, to prioritize your own needs, and to make room for the opportunities that align with your true purpose. Remember that it's okay to say no. It's a powerful, necessary tool for protecting your time, your energy, and your well-being. Every time you say no, you're asserting your boundaries, reinforcing your self-respect, and choosing to live life on your own terms. And over time, the more you practice saying no, the easier it becomes to embrace your own needs and to set the kind of boundaries that support your healthiest, most fulfilled life. Chapter 13. The Smart Way to Speak Less in Texts and Emails. In today's world, communication has shifted in ways that were once hard to imagine. With the advent of texting, instant messaging, and emails, we find ourselves in a constant flow of written communication. At first glance, it seems like a more convenient way to stay connected, quick, efficient, and often less intrusive. But when you think about it, these texts and emails can often become overwhelming. They leave us feeling like we're always on and rarely have space to breathe. The idea of cutting back on words, being more direct and purposeful, can help regain control of this fast-paced communication landscape. A simple rule to remember is that less is more. If you've ever been in the position where you send a message and it gets lost in a sea of unnecessary details, you know the frustration. It happens all the time. We feel the need to explain everything in detail, to make sure the other person understands every nuance, every little context, thinking that the more we say, the clearer the message will be. But in truth, the opposite is often true. The more words you add, the more you risk diluting the message and overwhelming the recipient. One of the most effective ways to communicate clearly and efficiently is by getting straight to the point. Think of it as a filter. Before you type out that text or email, take a moment to assess whether every word serves a purpose. Is this information necessary for the recipient to understand what you're trying to convey? Does it add value, or does it just take up space? A lot of times, we fall into the habit of adding fluff because we're either trying to soften a message or we're not sure exactly what we want to say, so we end up saying too much. To start communicating with more precision, begin by asking yourself one simple question before sending any text or email. What's the core of this message? If you can't immediately articulate the core message, chances are it's not clear to you either. In that case, take a step back and refine it. Instead of trying to explain every little detail or every possible angle, focus on the most important point. This is especially helpful in professional settings, where clarity is essential. People are busy. They don't have the time to read through long, rambling messages. They just want the essential information, and they want it fast. Being concise doesn't mean being abrupt or rude. It's about making sure that you're only including what's truly relevant and necessary. A good rule of thumb is to ask, if I were the person receiving this, what would be the one thing I absolutely needed to know? That's the essence of the message. Everything else can be cut out. If there's a bit of context that's needed, sure, include it. But don't overdo it. Don't feel like you need to explain everything in order for it to make sense. A few carefully chosen words can go much further than an overwhelming block of text. Think about the clarity you feel when you read a short and direct message. It immediately gives you a sense of control. You don't have to sift through unnecessary words to figure out what's being asked or shared. In contrast, long-winded messages can make us feel like we're drowning in a sea of unnecessary information. It's exhausting, and it can lead to misunderstandings. When you communicate more efficiently, you not only save time for yourself, but also for the person on the other end. There's another powerful aspect of reducing your words, the opportunity to increase your impact. The more concise and thoughtful you are, the more likely it is that your message will be remembered. When people see that you value their time and attention, they're more likely to respect your message. It becomes a tool for better engagement and stronger relationships. In professional environments, brevity is often seen as a sign of respect. It shows that you are confident enough to get to the point without unnecessary elaboration. It signals that you trust the other person's ability to understand your message without needing a lengthy explanation. When you adopt this approach, you'll notice that people respond more positively. They'll appreciate the clarity, and you'll be more likely to have productive conversations that lead to quick actions. In personal communication, the principle is the same. If you're texting a friend, spouse, or family member, they're likely to appreciate a more direct approach. There's no need to over-explain or add unnecessary details that may only complicate the conversation. In fact, Excessive explanation can sometimes come across as passive-aggressive, as though you're overcompensating for something that's unclear. When you keep things simple, you avoid these pitfalls and open the door to more meaningful exchanges. Another important piece of effective communication is recognizing when it's time to stop talking. The temptation to keep explaining ourselves, to keep offering more information, can come from a place of insecurity. We think that by adding more details, we'll make ourselves clearer or more convincing. But often the more we talk, the less convincing we become. People will start to tune us out, and the real message can get lost. Learning how to stop at the right moment is a key aspect of communicating with impact. To get better at this, start paying attention to your conversations, whether they're in person, over text, or in emails. Notice the moments where you might be saying more than necessary. How often do you feel like you're over-explaining? How often do you add extra context or qualifiers that don't add value? Once you become aware of this, practice reining it in. Stop before you say too much. By doing this, you allow your message to breathe and land more effectively. Finally, one of the most powerful tools in concise communication is silence. The space between words can often say more than the words themselves. In a conversation, don't be afraid of silence. Give the other person time to process what you've said before continuing. In written communication, you can achieve this by being mindful of your pacing. Don't feel compelled to fill every gap with more words. A well-timed pause or break can give your message the space it needs to resonate. As you get more comfortable with this approach, you'll see how effective it can be in all aspects of your life. You'll find that your messages are clearer, your conversations more impactful, and your relationships stronger. You'll also begin to notice how much time and energy you save when you stop over-explaining, overthinking, and overcomplicating things. You can focus more on the things that matter and let go of the unnecessary clutter that often fills our communications. By speaking less in our texts and emails, we open up more space for meaningful conversations. We give ourselves the ability to be understood quickly, respected for our clarity, and able to make our points without getting lost in unnecessary words. In a world that is constantly moving and filled with distractions, mastering this art of brevity can help us stand out and be heard. Chapter 14. Stop oversharing. Start attracting. In a world driven by oversharing, it's easy to fall into the trap of revealing too much. We live in a time when social media encourages us to share every moment, every thought, and every detail of our lives. It's almost as though we're taught that our value is determined by how much we expose, how many layers we peel back for others to see. But in reality, there's power in restraint. There's strength in knowing what to keep to yourself. Oversharing, especially in personal relationships, can often lead to unintended consequences. When we disclose too much, we risk putting others in positions where they feel uncomfortable or overwhelmed. People don't always need to know every detail of your life in order to connect with you. Sometimes, the most meaningful interactions happen when you leave a little bit of mystery. When we share too much, it can also dilute the importance of the things we do share. If you're constantly spilling everything out into the open, it becomes harder for people to discern what matters. Imagine receiving a text from a friend who tells you every minute detail of their day, from what they ate for lunch to how they felt about it. At first it might be interesting, but after a while you begin to lose track of what's truly important in their life. The details start to blend together, and the true meaning behind their words becomes clouded by the excess. Instead of creating stronger connections, oversharing can leave relationships feeling shallow and unfulfilling. It's not just about relationships with others. When you overshare, you also lose sight of yourself. We've all been there, telling someone everything, letting the words pour out, only to realize later that we've overexposed ourselves, leaving little room for personal reflection or for others to really see us for who we are. When you give away too much, too soon, you rob yourself of the chance to fully process your experiences before sharing them with others. You might feel an initial sense of relief or validation after revealing personal details, but that momentary satisfaction is fleeting. What you gain in attention or sympathy, you may lose in respect or understanding. We need to redefine what it means to be authentic. Authenticity isn't about sharing every detail of your life. It's about being true to yourself and allowing others to see the parts of you that matter. The power of keeping things to yourself comes from being discerning about when and what to share. It's about allowing the most meaningful moments to shine, without oversaturating the conversation with everything you've been thinking, feeling, or experiencing. You also have to recognize that oversharing can sometimes be a defense mechanism. We often overcompensate with words when we feel insecure or afraid of being judged. If we let it all out, then we can control how people see us, or at least we think we can. But this is an illusion. The more you share, the less control you have over how people perceive you. Instead of feeling more secure, you may end up feeling exposed and vulnerable in ways you didn't expect. It's a fine line between being open and being too open. Being more selective with what you share doesn't mean you're being dishonest. On the contrary, it's a way of protecting the parts of you that are sacred and personal. Just because something is happening in your life doesn't mean it has to be shared in every conversation. Think of your life as a garden. Not every plant needs to be on display. There are seeds, there are buds, and there are moments that are meant to bloom in their own time. When you overshare, you rush the process, not giving your thoughts, feelings, or experiences the space they need to fully grow. In the age of constant connection, it's crucial to know when to step back. Social media has made it incredibly easy to overshare. The constant need to update, to post, to comment, it creates a pressure to put yourself out there in a way that can be overwhelming. But when you step back and choose not to share every moment, you take back control. You create space for reflection and allow others to see you in a more meaningful way. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. There's also something incredibly empowering about not oversharing. When you keep certain aspects of your life private, you set boundaries that command respect. It's a reminder to others that your life is not an open book for them to read at their leisure. You teach people how to treat you by setting limits on what they can and can't know. By holding back certain details, you invite others to earn your trust and give them the opportunity to engage with you on a deeper level. When you share only the essential, your words become more powerful because they are not diluted by unnecessary details. Consider how you interact with others. When people overshare with you, it can sometimes make you feel uncomfortable or even burdened by their openness. It's important to recognize that not everyone wants to hear every detail of your life. Sometimes, what feels like a casual conversation to you can feel like a lot to someone else. By keeping things more balanced, you can create space for a more equal exchange. Instead of unloading everything onto someone, you give them room to share too, and in turn, you create more meaningful connections. Not oversharing also allows you to maintain a sense of mystery. There's something intriguing about someone who keeps certain things to themselves. It draws people in, inviting them to get to know you on a deeper level. The idea of mystery isn't about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about choosing when and how to reveal parts of yourself and letting others discover you gradually. Over time, you'll find that people are more drawn to you because they respect your boundaries and appreciate the mystery that comes with not knowing everything all at once. This approach to communication also applies to professional settings. In the workplace, it's important to maintain a level of professionalism and discretion. Oversharing about personal struggles, emotional challenges, or unnecessary details about your life can blur the lines between personal and professional. While it's important to build rapport with colleagues, there's a fine line between being open and being overly familiar. Being selective about what you share in the workplace shows that you can maintain boundaries and professionalism. It also helps you avoid the potential for gossip or misunderstandings, which can arise when personal information is shared too freely. Over time, you'll begin to see the benefits of this practice in your personal and professional life. Your conversations will become more intentional, more meaningful, and less about seeking validation and more about forming true connections. The effort to stop oversharing may feel difficult at first, especially if you're used to expressing every thought, but it will soon feel natural. With time, you'll recognize that the less you reveal, the more you have to offer in terms of quality connections. In a world that often encourages us to share everything, it takes courage to hold back. But in doing so, you preserve your sense of self and create relationships that are built on respect, trust, and genuine connection. The art of saying less is not just about cutting down on the number of words you use. It's about knowing when to remain silent and choosing to keep certain parts of your life sacred. It's a powerful tool that can help you attract the right people, maintain your integrity, and find deeper fulfillment in the connections you choose to make. Chapter 15. How to speak less in meetings but sound smarter. In meetings, there's often an unspoken pressure to speak up, to say something, to fill the silence with your thoughts. It's a natural impulse. We all want to be heard and to contribute. But if we aren't careful, this drive to speak can end up doing more harm than good. Sometimes it's not about how much you say, but how effectively you communicate. The art of speaking less in meetings is something many people overlook, yet it can set you apart in the most profound way. First, it's important to understand why speaking less can actually make you sound smarter. When we talk too much in a meeting, it's easy to come across as unsure or overcompensating. People might feel that you're trying to fill gaps or validate your presence. But when you speak less, when you say only what's necessary, it often comes across as more confident, more thoughtful, and more deliberate. It shows that you value the time and attention of others, that you know how to get to the point without rambling, and that you understand the importance of brevity. People often forget that meetings are not about performing for others. They're about collaboration, problem solving, and moving things forward. The more we talk, the more we risk derailing these objectives. We might find ourselves repeating ideas that have already been covered, elaborating unnecessarily on points that don't add value, or simply taking up space without contributing anything of substance. Each time we do this, we lose the focus of the group, and our credibility begins to slip away. Instead of filling the air with unnecessary words, take a step back and listen. The key to speaking less in meetings is first learning how to listen better. Often people talk over each other or speak without fully understanding the context. Listening allows you to pick up on nuances, to understand what's been said, and to form a more informed response. When you truly listen, you also give others the opportunity to contribute, which fosters a more balanced and productive discussion. When you do speak, make it count. Each word you say should carry weight. Focus on delivering your message clearly and concisely, avoiding tangents or filler words. Whether you're proposing an idea, offering feedback, or asking a question, try to keep your points short and precise. By doing this, you give others the space to engage with your ideas, leading to more meaningful and dynamic conversations. It's a sign of respect when you don't monopolize the conversation. It shows that you value the input of others and understand the importance of collaborative effort. Another key to speaking less in meetings is knowing when to hold back. Sometimes we feel the urge to respond immediately to everything that's said, to prove that we're paying attention, or to add our perspective to every point. But it's important to recognize that not everything requires a response. There's power in silence. By pausing before speaking, you give yourself a moment to reflect, to decide whether your contribution will truly add value, or if it's better to let others take the lead. This doesn't mean being passive or disengaged. It means being strategic about when and how you speak. As you practice speaking less, you'll start to notice a shift in how others perceive you. People will begin to respect you for your clarity, your thoughtfulness, and your ability to stay on point. They'll see that you're someone who understands the importance of making your words count, and that you're not just speaking for the sake of being heard. This can lead to greater influence within the group, as your contributions will be more likely to be valued and remembered. Of course, speaking less doesn't mean saying nothing. There will always be moments when your input is essential, when your expertise or perspective is needed to move the discussion forward. But those moments will stand out more if you've built a reputation for speaking thoughtfully and sparingly. People will be more inclined to listen to you when you speak, because they'll trust that what you say has substance, rather than just being another voice in the crowd. In some meetings, particularly those with a lot of people, it's easy to fall into the trap of trying to stand out or get noticed. But the more you talk in these situations, the more you risk blending in with the noise. It's far more effective to be strategic about when you speak. Make sure your words are aligned with the purpose of the meeting and contribute to its goals. When you speak only when it's necessary and relevant, people will begin to look to you for direction because they know that when you speak, it's with purpose. There's also something incredibly powerful about saying less in meetings, because it forces you to refine your ideas before presenting them. The more you talk, the less you think about the quality of your words. But when you hold back, you're forced to focus on clarity and precision. You can't afford to waste time with unnecessary explanations or ramblings. This discipline can help you become a clearer, more persuasive communicator overall. You'll start to notice that your points land more effectively, and you're able to guide conversations with ease rather than simply participating. When you learn to speak less in meetings, you also learn to value others' contributions. The more you talk, the less room there is for others to share their ideas. But when you pull back, you create space for others to contribute. This fosters an environment of collaboration where people feel empowered to speak up and share their thoughts. It also leads to more dynamic discussions, as diverse perspectives are given the chance to be heard and considered. It's important to recognize that speaking less isn't about suppressing your thoughts or hiding your opinions. It's about choosing when and how to share them in a way that adds value to the conversation. Sometimes this means holding back for a moment to let someone else speak, even if you have something to say. It's about being mindful of the flow of the meeting and understanding that the best ideas often emerge when everyone has a chance to contribute. When you speak less, you also become more attuned to the overall dynamics of the group. You start to pick up on the mood of the room, the body language of your colleagues, and the tone of the conversation. This awareness allows you to gauge when it's the right time to step in and when it's better to remain silent. Over time, this skill of reading the room becomes an invaluable tool, helping you navigate meetings with greater finesse. In many ways, speaking less in meetings is a sign of confidence. It shows that you don't feel the need to constantly assert yourself or dominate the conversation. You trust that your ideas are valuable and that when the time is right, they will be heard. This quiet confidence is incredibly powerful, and it positions you as someone who is not only competent, but also wise. It sends a message that you don't need to prove anything. Your words speak for themselves. As you embrace this practice of speaking less, you'll also begin to recognize how much energy it saves you. Instead of engaging in every conversation, you start to conserve your mental and emotional resources. You become more selective in how you spend your time and attention, allowing you to be more present in the moments that matter. This leads to a greater sense of clarity and focus, both in meetings and in life. Speaking less in meetings isn't about shutting yourself down or staying silent all the time. It's about speaking with purpose, precision, and impact. It's about understanding that the most powerful contributions often come in small, thoughtful doses. When you learn to say less, you'll find that your words carry more weight, your presence is more commanding, and your ability to influence those around you becomes stronger.